Welcome back to Full Circle with Shawn. And today we'll be talking about the Army. And if you haven't watched my last episode on foster care, I do recommend you take a look at that. And hopefully I'm getting better with my little lip smacks and my ums. So as I said, I'm not really going to edit many of these. So hopefully you enjoy it. Yeah, so let's pick up where we left off. So returning to my mother. So obviously she did it so she didn't have to pay for college. And as soon as I got in the house, she wanted rent. So I was paying rent. It was not a good environment to be in. And so I didn't stay there very long. I went and moved to a motel on the outskirts of town. So I'm living in a motel, and I was working at Wendy's at the time. Yeah, working at Wendy's. And what I was doing is I was working nights, so I would do the close. So from after school, maybe 5-6 o'clock I'd start, and I'd work to close, wrap it up, and then I would sleep in. So I had economics, and then I had study hall. 3 study halls, because it's my senior year. So I had 3 study halls, and then the rest of my classes. And then after school, I would make up economics. Well, my teacher didn't really care for that very much. But it was the school rule that if you miss a class, you can make it up after school. So I was making it up all the time. And the economics teacher told me that if I didn't start coming to his actual class, that he would fail me. So I went to the principal and I said, that's unacceptable. This is my situation. And he talked to the economics teacher and he said, no, you can't do that. And then we had a 5,000 word report, which I was 4,900 and something. And he failed me for failing to meet the number of words that was required and put me in summer school. So I didn't actually, as soon as he failed me and told me I was failing his class, I left school. Now, I'm living in a motel now. I think I was working at Ponderosa and Wendy's then. And just contemplating my life, right? So one of my best friends who lived next to me, she was dating some pretty rough characters. And I was just thinking, what am I going to do with my life, right? I have no high school diploma. I've got no future. And on the TV came an Army ad. And I went, okay, I'll go talk to a recruiter, join the Army. So I went into the recruitment office. I took the ASVAB. I scored a 97 on the ASVAB. And they go, oh, you can have any job that you want. And I said, well, I didn't graduate from high school. And they said, oh, you can be a generator mechanic in the reserves. So a 52 Delta. And I said, okay, I'll take it. But I want to go active duty. I don't want to go reserves. And they said, oh, you have to go reserves. We can get you a waiver, but you can't go active duty. So I signed up. I left a couple days later, and off I went to basic training. So basic training, yep, South Carolina, all done. Head to Baltimore to do my advanced training, and one of the drill sergeants, just in my unit, just happened to be one that had a passion for education, and he during the first first formation, he said, does anybody here not have a high school diploma? And I thought that was kind of weird, but I raised my hand and I was the only one. And he said, do you want to get a high school diploma? And I said, yeah, absolutely. He said, all right, I'll put you in night school. So I did my advanced training and I did my GED during AIT. So I graduate from both. I head back to Canandaigua, New York, and I've got a GED. Great. Now I want to go active duty. So I go into the recruiter, and I'm like, I want to go active duty. And he goes, you can't get released because the reserve unit paid for your training, and they just won't release you until they get time. But I'll tell you, if you move far enough away, they have to release you to another unit. And the other unit that takes you won't have paid for your training. So they will release you to active duty. I said, okay. I had $300 in my pocket. I jumped on a bus, went north, and found a motel. And walked, I think it was 2 miles to a gas station because it's in the middle of nowhere, and got a job at the gas station at night, of course. And it took 4 months, I think, to get transferred to the other one and released. And as soon as I was released, I was shipped off to active duty. Now, I lived in a motel, obviously, which is a whole lot of fun. At one time, there was this guy that came over. So they're having a big barbecue. And I'm coming in, walking with all my groceries. I think I was walking back with. And he's like, "Hey, we got this hot sauce. It's really good. It's barbecue sauce." He didn't say hot sauce. It's barbecue sauce. You got to try it on the spoon. And I was like, "Okay." So I took the whole spoon and tried it. And it was hot sauce. And self-made hot sauce. And I thought I was going to die. And he's like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't think you were going to try the whole thing." And yeah. So life lesson number 1, just take a little bit when you try something. Yeah, but again, there you go. So I'm finally released and I'm off to active duty. My first tour was in Germany. So heading off to Germany, I was at Ramstein. It was great. Learned a lot, obviously. I was there for 3 years. In the middle of that was the Kosovo conflict. I was deployed to to Albania, actually, as part of the Kosovo conflict. As we were loaded up, C-17s were flying over, my units in planes behind me, with just a couple of privates from different units just happened to be on the first plane. And we fly over, and all of a sudden there's missiles, because you have to fly over this mountain range. So we fly over the mountain range, there's missiles, they turn every plane around except for ours. So we land, there's already some Cav Scouts there with some equipment. There's almost nobody. It's like it's an airfield that we've taken over, right? So everybody else is gone. And it's a month before anybody else comes, except for they send some tanks and stuff and to secure everything. And then the unit comes in. Well, during that time, I'm a private. I'm pretty green. So I didn't know what to do. So I've got a vehicle. I've got a tent. The tent is up. And I'm just fixing stuff. For any unit that's there, I'll fix it for you. And what I learned is make friends with the 82nd, because they get access to fresh fruit, fresh meat, everything. Instead of eating MREs every day, if you're their friend and fix stuff, you can do a deal. And that's what happened. I learned all that then. I ended up getting trench foot. I slept in my truck quite a bit because I got stuck on different sides of the airfield. It rained a lot. And then when everybody got there, I was down for a week or two, just extremely sick. But yeah, I mean, that's probably the first time I learned what it's like to be, obviously what it's like to be in a combat zone. That was my first time in a combat zone, but what it's like that other people think during events. So, for example, we're really, really close to the front line, and the scouts were engaged in a firefight, and bullets are coming in. And I was out. This is when my unit was there, and I was out with my master sergeant and specialist, and I'm still private. And we were working on a truck. And I'm a generator mechanic, but y'all pitch in. And we're working on a truck in the middle of a field that basically had nothing around it. And we're probably, we're a bit away from the tents and stuff. So all of a sudden, bullets are flying, and I've got my Kevlar gear on. I'm wearing all my plates, and so is the master sergeant, and the specialist chief forgot to bring hers. So he tells her, go low crawl back to your tent and get on your bulletproof vest, right? So she low crawls back and then low crawls back out into the hot zone. And it was just interesting because, he was like, what are you doing? But she didn't know. I mean, because our brain goes into a different state in those kind of circumstances. And I didn't realize that people would act like that. So another instance is, we were getting bombed basically on the base at the time, and everybody's running to the bunkers, and our bunker was locked because the comms people thought they would secure their comms equipment in there and locked it. And it just happens to be our bunker. So we run behind the bunker, and the people just freaking out. And he looks at one of them and he says, "Do you have your water bottle?" And they're like, "Yes, Sergeant." "Oh, drink your water. You need to drink water." Okay. And by focusing people onto doing something, it took away that anxiety that they had because they didn't have any direction at the time. And that's really important. And so I learned a lot of things during that one. He was great. The master sergeant was 82nd. He was he'd moved to our unit basically to retire. It was his last assignment, and just a really, really great guy. So learned all of that. And then we went back to the base. So we get back to Germany, and the majority of our equipment is shot. I mean, it's been a long time since some of these companies went to war. I mean, our equipment's old. It was maintained, but stuff breaks. So I think we had 75-80% of our equipment is non-functional if you were to get deployed again, right? So everybody went on leave. I have no family. So I said, "Look, I'll stay. I'll take first watch." I think I was a private first class at the time. And the sergeant said, "Okay, you're, I was generators anyways. I was on the truck side at that time." And he said, "Okay, just don't go under, 80% readiness." And that means that if you have things that are broken in the Army, you can declare it deadlined. And deadline means you get a priority on parts. So it was true. All of our stuff was deadlined. And if you don't deadline it, then you can wait forever for parts. So we're back, and they go to leave, and they're on leave for a month. And as soon as they go on leave, I deadlined all the equipment. And I got all the parts in, and I fixed everything, and we were at 100% readiness in that month when he came back. But his records looked horrible because everything was deadline. So he had to go at me, failure to obey a direct order. Paperwork was written up, and I was going to be demoted. And lo and behold, Colonel decides to do a walkthrough. And he got an award for being the only unit that didn't lie about the status of their equipment and is fully operational to go to war if they had to. And my paperwork got tore up, and I got a much smaller award. But yeah, but I do believe in doing the right thing at the right time, all the time. And so if that's what it was, I wasn't going to lie. And it worked out in my favor. And that has actually worked a few times. And in my favor is by doing the right thing, even when it isn't popular. And I'll go through some of those and some of my other stuff as well, but maybe some in this one as well. So that's done. I did my tour in Germany, and I get out. So I get a green to gold scholarship. So basically what green to gold is the Army decides you're worthy of being an officer, but officers have to have bachelor degrees. So we're going to send you to college, and we're going to foot the bill to a point. So I get the scholarship. I get into a college. I'm back in the States as a civilian, and I'm going to college. And after 6 months, 9/11 happens, and I couldn't deal. Right, so they started calling people back in, and I said, "Yep, I'll go back." And I came back in, and as a specialist, and off to Louisiana, where I was with the 2nd Cavalry, and went over to Iraq. So we stationed in Kuwait. We went over the border in the initial invasion. We went to Baghdad. We took the Special Army base in Baghdad, and we were stationed there for a while. I was I specialist, or did I get promoted to sergeant by then? No, I was a sergeant then because I had soldiers underneath me. So I went to sergeant school, which was was pretty cool. And I think the thing that was really cool is like one of the things I teach you in sergeant school is not everybody is motivated the same way, right? So, you might have Joe and Adam, and Joe, if you yell at Joe and say, why are you doing that? It'll demotivate him, completely demotivate him, destroy him. But if you say, Joe, you can do better. You're better than that. You've always shown it before. Joe will get motivated. Where in Adam, if you say you could do better, he's like, yeah, I could, whatever. But if you say, why didn't you do that? He go, oh, I want to get my act together. So they teach you all those basic skills that you need for people management, really, which is a hard skill in all honesty, and even one that I've struggled sometimes through business, and we'll go through that as well. So I get there. We end up going to Iraq, where we go to Baghdad. And as soon as we get on the base, there's these two big generators, right? Massive generators. And there's a hospital there, but there's no power. There's no power to any of the base. And there's this massive hospital. They've torn it up. I mean, they've destroyed the generators. They've torn up the hospital building. There's some other small buildings they've basically torn up. And the colonel says to the warrant officer, go get one of those generators running. Let's get some power on this base. So he goes over a couple days later, comes back and says, not going to happen. There's just no way we can get these generators running. So I looked at my captain, because I'm in a company, and I said to him, can I go have a play? I just want to have a play with these generators because I've never seen something like this. He said, yeah, go ahead. I think it took me a day or two, and I fired one up. And all of a sudden I worked for the colonel and rebuilding the base camp. And with that, we lit up the hospital. I lit up the hospital. Don't ever go look at the cable connections, because they were, hand knotted together with a whole bunch of electrical tape. It's not really the safest thing in the world, but we had power, and everybody had power, which means we end up getting air conditioning. The standard of life for the average soldier went way up. But we also brought the hospital online, and with the hospital online, we got a forward surgical team. And with the forward surgical team, all of a sudden the Canal Hotel bombing happened, and there was really not a good place to take them to. I mean, there were some medical teams around, but we actually had a surgery team, and so they started bringing them into us. And I was working mad hours to get as many of the rooms operational, and the problems, because obviously everything we have is reconditioned or not the highest quality. So getting all the inverters and everything working, because they run a different power than the States. Obviously they run 220 and we're all 110. So we had to have all these inverters and everything everywhere, and it was a bit of a mess, but it worked, and we saved a lot of lives there. And then at the end of that, before that happened, as soon as I was told that I'm rebuilding the base camp, I went to the front of the base, and there was just a lot of civilians out there, and I said, who knows computers? And one guy raised his hand, Mohammed, and he came in, and I said, all right, I want computers. I want to build a place where the soldiers can call home, email, stuff like that. Normal stuff, little place like that. And so he brought in the people, and one of the people he brought in was Nahrain. And little did I know I would marry Nahrain years later. And so he brought in Nahrain. We had a good connection, but obviously we weren't dating or anything, but we had a really good connection, really strong connection. And then we were told our tour is over. So it's been a year. Our tour is over. We transfer with the other unit. Now, at the same time, the Spanish have left Diwania. So our unit got extended to go and secure Diwania. And as soon as we left the base camp, my wife is leaving because she's working there. Not my wife yet. But she's leaving the base camp, and a bunch of terrorists basically came and shot up the car, and then put a bomb in the car. And for more of that, I think in the next episode, I'll actually bring Naharain on and let her tell you her story. And she came to Australia as a refugee. So I actually thought she was dead at the time, and I thought she was dead for a year when it happened. So let's touch base on that in the next episode. And let's bring Naharain in and let her go through the story, maybe through 1 or 2 episodes there. So I hope you enjoyed this one. And just remember, I don't really edit. I'd rather have a conversation like we're having a conversation, because I can't edit when you're here with me. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to chatting in the next episode.
End of the road, we've come so far in the circle of life. With Shawn we're stars. From the depths of care to the force we go. In the twists of life we reap and sow. Journey on through every phase. Find your strength in the darkest of days.